My name is Private First Class Danny Walker, U.S. Army Medical Corps. I was 19 years old when I learned that God doesn't walk the battlefield. Medics do. I didn't carry a rifle. No helmet marking glory. Just a canvas medical bag stained with blood that was never mine. They told us the Red Cross would protect us. That was the first lie war ever told me. The trenches. The trenches in France smelled like wet earth, cordite, fear, and old death. Mud clung to everything: boots, uniforms, faces, souls. Rats ran freely, fat from feeding on what yesterday had been men. Shells screamed overhead like angry gods. When they landed, the ground shook as if the world itself wanted us gone. Medic! Medic! That word cut through gunfire better than any whistle. The first man I treated was Corporal Eddie Ramirez. Shrapnel had torn through his thigh, shredding muscle like paper. He was screaming, grabbing my arms so hard his nails broke skin. "Don't let me die, Danny. Please." I lied. "You're gonna be fine, Eddie. Stay with me." I packed the wound with shaking hands, injected morphine, tightened a tourniquet until he screamed again, then went quiet. His eyes rolled back. He lived. That day, 3 others didn't. Saving what was left. By winter, I stopped counting bodies. I counted breaths instead. In the trenches, injuries weren't clean. Legs were half gone. Faces burned. Bellies opened by machine gun fire. You learn fast, stop the bleeding, keep them breathing, move on. There was Private Thomas Green, coughing blood into my hands after a lung hit. Sergeant Miller, missing an arm but still asking where his men were. Johnny Collins, barely 17, crying for his mother while I stitched him under fire. Sometimes I worked for hours without realizing I was soaked head to toe in blood. None of it mine. No one is untouchable. One night, during a counterattack near the German line, the shelling was relentless. The trench walls collapsed in places, burying wounded men alive. I heard screaming from no man's land. "Danny, don't go!" someone yelled. But I went anyway. Crawling through mud and wire, bullets snapping inches above me, I reached Lieutenant Parker, his leg mangled beyond recognition. I dragged him back inch by inch. That's when it happened. A click. A sound so small, it barely existed. I knew what it was before my brain caught up. The mine. The explosion threw me backward like a rag doll. For a moment, there was nothing. No sound. No pain. Then everything came back at once. My ears rang. My chest burned. My left leg felt like it was on fire, then like it wasn't there at all. I looked down and saw blood pumping into the mud where my boot used to be. I laughed. Actually laughed. "So this is how it ends," I whispered. But war wasn't done with me yet. Working while dying. I tied my own tourniquet with shaking hands. Morphine, 1 vial, straight into my leg. The pain dulled, but the cold came fast. And then I heard it again. "Medic!" A young voice. "Close." I crawled. Every movement sent lightning through my body. I found Private Lewis Harper, shrapnel in his stomach, bleeding out. He looked at my leg, or what was left of it. "Sir, you're hurt." I smiled. "Yeah. Guess I finally joined the club." I worked on him for 20 minutes. Maybe more. Time didn't matter anymore. He lived. I passed out. Aftermath. I woke up in a field hospital with my leg gone below the knee. The doctor said, "You're lucky to be alive." Lucky. I thought about Eddie. About Johnny. About the ones whose names I never learned. I was sent home in 1945. Medals followed. People called me a hero. They didn't see the faces that came back in my dreams. The line between worlds. Even now, years later, I still hear it. Medic! That word lives with you forever. I didn't win the war. I didn't change history. But between life and death, in the mud and fire, I stood on that line, and sometimes, I pulled someone back. And sometimes, I couldn't. Between Life and Death, Part 2, The War That Followed Me Home. They told me the war was over. Germany had fallen. The guns went silent. Parades filled the streets back home. People smiled at the uniform, at the medals pinned to my chest, at the empty space where my left leg used to be. But no one ever tells you that some wars don't end when the shooting stops. Coming home. I arrived in New York Harbor on a gray morning in late 1945. The city looked untouched, alive, like it had never known what mud tastes like when it's mixed with blood. My mother hugged me and cried. My father shook my hand like I was a man he had just met. My younger sister stared at my prosthetic leg and tried not to. "You're safe now," my mother said. I nodded. I didn't tell her that safety felt foreign. Wrong. The nights. At night, the trenches came back. I smelled cordite. Heard artillery. Felt hands grabbing my sleeve. "Medic, please!" I woke up soaked in sweat, heart pounding, fingers clawing at the sheets like they were dirt walls caving in. Sometimes I reached for my medical bag before I realized where I was. Sometimes I screamed. The ones who didn't make it. During the day, strangers thanked me for my service. At night, the dead visited. Eddie Ramirez stood at the foot of my bed, his leg whole again. Johnny Collins sat on the floor, still 17, still crying for his mother. Men I had treated. Men I hadn't reached in time. They never blamed me. That was the worst part. Back to the hospital. In 1946, I took a job at a veterans hospital in Pennsylvania. They didn't hesitate to hire me. A combat medic with a Purple Heart. I was perfect. The first patient I treated was a former infantryman with both legs gone. He stared at the ceiling, refusing to speak. I checked his vitals. Cleaned his wounds. "You saved anyone over there?" he finally asked. I paused. "Yes." "Then why do I feel like I died anyway?" I had no answer. Still a medic. The thing about being a medic is that you never stop being one. I treated panic attacks like chest wounds. Nightmares like infections. Survivor's guilt like internal bleeding no one else could see. Some men screamed when a tray fell. Others refused to sleep with the lights off. A few never spoke again. I recognized the look in their eyes. I wore it too. The letter. One day, a letter arrived. It was from Lewis Harper, the boy I saved after the mine. He wrote about his wife, his newborn son, his job at a factory in Ohio. He thanked me for giving him a life. At the bottom, he wrote, "I don't remember your face very clearly, sir. But I remember your hands. They didn't shake." I stared at that line for a long time. My hands had been shaking the whole time. The memorial. Years later, I stood at a small war memorial in my hometown. Names carved in stone. Too many of them familiar. I touched the cold surface and whispered apologies no one could hear. A young boy stood nearby, watching me. "Were you a soldier?" he asked. "I was a medic," I said. His eyes widened. "Did you save people?" I thought of the trenches. The mine. The blood. The ones who lived. The ones who didn't. "Yes," I said softly. "I did." Still on the line. I'm an old man now. My leg aches when it rains. My hands shake sometimes, especially when I hear sirens. But I still remember how to stop bleeding. How to breathe for someone else when they can't. The line between life and death never really leaves you. I walked at once with a red cross on my arm and no weapon in my hands. And if I had to do it again, I would. Because in a world tearing itself apart, someone has to run toward the screams. Even when it costs everything.